Oh, hey, good afternoon. Good morning, everybody, depending on what part of this beautiful country that you're in. I'm Sheila Gunreed. You're watching the new daily edition of Rebel Roundup. And I am joined by my real life best friend, but also the regular Tuesday co host, Lise Merle from Regina, Saskatchewan. Lise, how's it going?
Well, it couldn't be better, Sheila. I mean, there's no better thing to do than hang out with you, and I'm just so delighted to be the regular Tuesday co-host with you. Uh, it is a bitterly cold
Yes.
day here in
It's terrible.
Saskatchewan and in Alberta, and there's what a better way to warm up than with you
Oh,
here today. So
aw, that's so nice. Yeah. The good thing about Regina and northeastern Alberta is the similar bitterly cold climate and the onerous carbon tax. Although you're lucky in Saskatchewan, your premier is willing to go to jail to prevent you from being forced to pay for it.
he sure is, and they'd need some mighty huge handcuffs for our Scott Moe, who has hands, and I am not making this up, the size of toilet seats. Okay, the size of toilets. I've never seen a man with bigger hands in my. I actually handed a one of my favorite pastimes is handing babies that don't belong to me to politicians. And I've handed a bunch of babies to Scott Moe. And as I'm handing these little tiny humans over, I'm always real nervous because his hands are just so uncommonly humongous. So yes, bring the huge handcuffs, Trudeau, for when you got Mo away for not paying the carbon tax. But I think it needs to be said that other provinces could do that too because they haven't arrested him. Okay, it's just an empty threat, and a lot of other provinces could not pay the carbon tax too. I mean, you'd have to go to court like we are, but it's worth it. We just save thousands of dollars as a family a year not paying carbon taxes on our home heat. It's awesome. You should try
Yeah,
it, you guys. You should all try it.
we'd love to, but we have a completely privatized energy system here in Alberta. We don't have a crown corporation selling us energy, so we can't ask our energy retailers to break the law. However, Danielle Smith is looking to backdoor this by having like a
Yes.
regulator distributor of last resort. It's just a pass through. I'm not somebody who wants government agencies ever created or crown corporations ever to
Yes.
exist, but this one would just be like a paper corporation where
Right.
the energy would pass through out the other side and then thus insulate the energy retailers and distributors from not remitting the carbon tax. So it's in
She
the
should do
works. Yeah.
she should do that like post haste. I mean, it
Yes.
is there's a reason we can afford to do all these fun things in Saskatchewan. Sheila, like all the fun travel that we do and all of the fun plans we make. That's the carbon tax money that I'm using. Putting it right in my gas tank. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah.
Mark Holland said your road trips are killing the planet. What a lunatic that guy is. I should tell everybody what we're doing because this show is completely unscripted. It's about an hour and a half long, and we like to talk about the news here at Rebel News. I know Lisa and I like to talk about the news. This is one of the bases for our friendship. And so we thought, why not have a little discussion with you? And I really do mean that. So if you're watching us on the censorship platform of YouTube, I appreciate you for sticking it out over there. I I know the rebellious compulsion to stay somewhere where you're told you don't belong. I get it. But YouTube has been telling conservatives for a very long time, you don't belong there. They don't want your opinions. You might be a little bit too truthy. That's fine. But if you want to support the work that we do at Rebel News, because we're completely demonetized from YouTube for now, um, if you want to support us and engage in a lively discussion that is uncensored, migrate your viewership over to Rumble. They're a great free speech platform that fights for your right to free speech. And you can leave us something called a Rumble rant over there. That's their version of YouTube's super chat. And if your Rumble rant is over the $5 US cutoff, we are hereby obligating ourselves to read it on air. We're making it mandatory. Now, don't let that be the bar for entry because, as you know, every little bit helps us here at Rebel News. So if your Rumble rant is under the $5 US cutoff, if we have time, and we frequently do, we will also do our best to read or address your comment on air. So I think that's it. That's all the nuts and bolts. Let's get into tariff mania rolls on in Canada. This one is from Trump. He says if it's not made in the United States, if it's made in the United States, there's no tariff. We don't need it from another country. As an example, Canada.
So if it's made in the United States, there is no tariff. All you have to do is make it in the United States. We don't need it from another country. As an example, Canada. If we make it in the United States, we don't need it to be made in Canada. We'll have the jobs. That's why Canada should be our 51st state. We'll bring back industries and we'll bring back our jobs and we'll make America industry great again. So essentially, we're putting on a 25% tariff without exception on all aluminum and all steel. And it's going to mean a lot of businesses are going to be opening in the United States. Now, we're going to be meeting over the next 4-week period, maybe on a weekly basis, and maybe we'll do a couple of them at different times and maybe together. But we'll be talking about other subjects like cars. We'll be talking about drugs and pharmaceuticals. We'll be discussing chips. And we're going to be doing some other things in addition to that, all which will bring in a lot of jobs into our country. Cars is going to be a very big one and a very important one. And America is going to be stronger than it ever was before.
You know, find someone who loves you like this fancy billionaire loves the hard hat wearing, work boot wearing American worker. You know,
Isn't that so the truth? And how is the Team Canada hardline approach going for you, Doug Ford? Like, how did that pan out? You're watching your auto industry get snatched back to America, and well, I mean, he just took such an ugly antagonistic approach towards Trump, and look what happened. Now your aluminum is being tariffed, and now steel is being tariffed. Regina has a humongous steel plant, and that's going to impact their operations without question. But Trump, what a guy! What a guy!
That's the thing. Like, he was elected for America first, to fight for the American worker, the forgotten man, the people who live in flyover country, who've seen their factories shut down and their home equity end up underwater because of the economic decisions of the progressives in DC and LA and New York. They are the forgotten people, and he was elected to speak for them and to fight for them, to fight for the people in Appalachia being hammered by fentanyl and the opioid crisis.
Mhm.
And so he's doing that. Now, whatever impact that will inevitably have on Canada, wouldn't it be great if we had somebody who loved us like this man loves the blue collar American?
doesn't it just go to show you the complete disengagement that Trudeau has with regular everyday Canadians? I mean, to think that Trudeau would say something like that and actually mean it. You know, this last one calendar month, he's gone on a I Love Canada tour after 10 years of
Yeah.
telling us that there's nothing good about Canada, that we have no national identity, that that our people aren't worthy of good things and stable lives and strong paychecks and a future for raising our families. And all of a sudden in the last month, well, now we're Team Canada. Get
Yeah.
bent. Get
Yeah.
bent.
I love seeing all the like well-kept progressive liberals in the cities saying like, I will fight to the death for Canada. And so I've just been sending them the recruitment form from the Canadian Armed Forces. But also
I
like, do you
I
realize
nearly
that
died. I nearly died when I nearly died when I saw that you did that. Yeah, this one woman on the internet
she's
takes a
former
picture.
CBC employee, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, former CBC employee. Yeah, takes a picture of a lonely, barren rural road and proclaims, I love this place. I will do whatever it takes to defend this place to the death. And Sheila just hits her back with the recruiting form to the Canadian Armed Forces. And I was like, oh my God. Here it is. Yeah, here it is. And because you know deep down that she will not click that link, Sheila. She will
No.
not click that link. I mean, she would not do 4-hour shifts. She would not sleep in a sleeping bag. She would not pick up a weapon. She wants to sit on the internet and be holier than thou. I mean, that was just the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Like
Well done.
Trudeau says we have no right to defend ourselves. Also, send your guns to Ukraine so they can defend themselves. And now the same people who are like, yeah, good idea, Trudeau, are like, I'm going to fight to the death to defend this country. Sorry, the people who are intrigued by the idea of Canada becoming the 51st state, we're the ones with all the guns, by the way.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I don't know if you're getting bombarded with people calling you a traitor on the internet for even thinking, right? But I would just like to point out that because Quebec tried to separate not one time but 2 times, there is actually a law called the Clarity Act, which lays out the terms for any province that wants to separate from Confederation. We already have the law to tell us how to do this. And don't think that people in Saskatchewan and Alberta aren't taking a long, hard look at the Clarity Act right now, because they are. Because they are.
Well, there's a lot of like, I'll fight to the death to defend Canada from the same people who were scared to death to go the wrong way in the grocery store for 3 years.
Yes.
Like,
no.
right?
What are we gonna do? Stand across the border and lob water balloons at them? Tampons?
Yeah.
Tampons? Is that what we're gonna throw? Because those are in
Yeah.
such high supply in men's rooms. Is that what we're gonna arm our men with? You try that. You try that against the world's biggest military superpower. Let me know how that goes. I'm just gonna be over here with my red carpet. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Sorry, we can't defend you because we sent all of our equipment to Ukraine, but have you heard about our tampons in the men's room at the military base?
Yes,
Take us seriously.
Like, true story. If Trump wanted to come into Canada, this is how hard it would be to well, they would have to just go to Ottawa, okay, go to Ottawa, and they don't even have to bring military vehicles, no tanks, no nothing, just their civilian vehicles. Pull in front of Parliament and just honk a little bit. Just honk a little bit and see how fast these fools fold. They will fold like a Jeep tent, Sheila. This is how precious these people, and these are all the people that are so protectionist. Like, these are people with a lot to lose, because if Alberta and Saskatchewan wave goodbye to the failed experiment that is Confederation, Ottawa's going to have a real hard time paying for all those perks that they so readily take. So
yeah, that's a great point. These are the same people who not only followed the lines on the grocery store because they were so scared of death, and death came counterclockwise, but these are also the people who found it to be auditory violence committed against them because somebody had a street party and got a little honkety honk excited in the nation's capital. That was literally for them their Pearl Harbor. Like they
True
did. They
story.
invoked the Pearl Harbor law over
Yes.
honking. And we're gonna fight to the death. The hell you are. The hell
The
you are.
hell-
You're
You're
gonna
stand
ingratiate
on
yourselves, yeah, to the
Yes.
Democrats and hope for the best.
You're gonna stand on your little balconies of your condos in Ottawa and pitch tampons. That is the extent of your fighting back. And don't act like you're tough. Like, don't act
Yeah.
like you're tough. You don't have to survive what Western Canada survived. You've never had a day of arduous work in your entire lives, and yet you'd say
Yeah.
that you'd fight. Baloney.
Pete
Baloney.
Hegseth, all he has to do is scowl in these people's direction and they'll melt like the Wicked Witch of the West.
Right.
Or, you have JD Vance quoting theology at them and they'll just shrivel up and die like a plucked fruit. Like, it's just so crazy. Like, these are the least brave people on the face of the planet doing a lot of brave talking on the internet. And the good news is that I don't think they're ever going to have to put their money where their mouth is, because the Americans are far too nice to us.
And Trump also said that he wasn't going to use military. You know what?
He doesn't
like
have
military.
to.
He's just going to tariff us into oblivion, and then wait until we beg to join. That's what he's going to do, and that's in response to this insane Team Canada approach, this hardline approach that's coming out of every Liberal leadership candidate, and and the lesser premiers of the country.
The lesser premiers. Yours has come around to my way of thinking. We've got Prime Minister Trudeau reacting to Trump's tariffs on aluminum and steel, and this is in direct response, I think, to Doug Ford running his groundhog-looking face all the time about Trump.
We reciprocate dollar for dollar with tariffs on aluminum and steel.
As usual, we hope that it will not come to that. We will work with the American administration and highlight that imports of Canadian steel and aluminum create thousands, if not millions, of jobs and support families across the United States. We have been doing things together in an extraordinarily integrated way for many, many years, and we will look to continue to work with our closest ally and partner. We should be doing more together, not fighting with each other, but Canadians will stand up strongly and firmly if we need to.
He hopes it won't come to that, Sheila. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Nobody wants a trade war with America quite as much as Justin Trudeau. And that's just the short and long of it.
Yeah, because he cannot campaign, or the Liberals, I'm sorry, cannot campaign on their record. So they need to campaign as the leaders of the anti-Trump cabal. You literally cannot campaign against Poilievre, because Poilievre's like, yeah, we're going to build military bases in the north. We're going to roll back the carbon tax. We're going to cut immigration. But we're going to cut DEI spending, he announced yesterday, from Global Affairs. So you can't campaign against that. All you can do is say, well, we are the leaders of Team Canada against Trump. So,
that's
continue
all they
on with
got.
the tampons. Yeah.
That's all they got is Orange Man bad, Orange Man dangerous, rah rah, we tough, Team Canada. And it's just such a false claim. As with everything Trudeau says, you must listen to what he says and then think to yourself, right, what is the exact opposite of that? Because that is what he means. This is the king of doublespeak and the king of saying exactly the opposite of what he actually says, or meaning the exact opposite of what he actually says. No, he doesn't want to solve this. He doesn't want this to go away. He wants to antagonize Trump, and I think they are, and dig themselves a hole. And you know what? Let them. At this point, let them.
Yeah, Trump was elected to turn the Rust Belt. How do you encourage investment back there? Well, you tariff all incoming steel, and he did it to, I guess, all countries, not just Canada. But we know from Danielle Smith's exquisite diplomacy that if you try to make the case, you can escape the worst of it. But Trudeau never did. So
are they taking any cues from Danielle Smith? No, because then that would make it look like she knew what she was doing and they didn't. No, they're
Yeah.
going to continue on this pathway of destruction. They're going to sink Canadian industry. They're going to hurt Canadian workers. When all we needed was a little, a little loyalty and a little diplomacy and a little hustle. Exactly what Danielle Smith showed, and we could have really got this licked right at the beginning. And they didn't. They didn't
Yeah.
because when it comes right down to it, they don't care about us. They don't care
Look-
about Canadian workers. They don't care about Canadian jobs, and they don't care about the success of
days from our 11th hour reprieve
Mhm.
on tariffs, and we still don't have the fentanyl czar, which was the linchpin in all of this.
I read that they're considering Brenda Lucki, the former commissioner of the RCMP.
God help us.
Like, for real, Sheila. This
The
is
lady who
woman that was
oversaw the explosion of fentanyl in the country.
the lady that saw the destruction of the RCMP as a beloved institution. That woman.
Right.
The woman that was in charge during the Port-au-Prince massacre. The woman that was in charge during the James Smith Cree Nation massacre. That woman, the one that ushered in all of the DEI, all of the tampons, and all of the pride flags flying
Yeah.
at the RCMP. This is the woman that we're gonna. If that happens, we may as well just
Yeah.
just start walking to the border ourselves, Sheila, because that's a disaster waiting to happen. This is such an inept woman.
Now, the Liberals and the NDP, they have no desire to bring the heat down anywhere. This tweet from the big boss, Ezra Levant, notes that the Ontario Liberal Party, led by Bonnie Crombie, and they're in the throes of an election campaign there, she announced an F Trump fund. So Bonnie Crombie, this lady didn't she used to be the mayor of Mississauga? She oversaw the worst of Mississauga, if I recall correctly. What is this? I love Ontario. This is like, is this a Valentine's Day ad or a political campaign? But anyway, let's hear from Bonnie Crombie.
We've also created what we call the Fight Tariff Fund, the FTF, or F Trump Fund too, however you want to take it. We would
Helpful.
ensure that businesses had access to capital, which would stimulate more investment in our province. We've also
So have you heard about Bonnie Crombie's upcoming book? It's called How to Lose Friends and Alienate Trade Partners.
Right.
That's going to do anybody any favors, Bonnie. What
Right.
an idiot. What an absolute abject idiot.
Yeah. She wants to be the next premier of Ontario. Now, Doug Ford's no scream in hell either, I'll tell you that much. But so far, he has not announced the F Trump Fund and thought it was clever. But is that the woman you want in charge of the entire Ontario economy, which is so dependent on trade with the United States in the auto sector and the steel sector, even electricity? You want that woman in charge when she's like, yeah, I'm going to be the F Trump premier. Great. What could possibly go wrong?
Best of luck with that, Ontario. But Ontario is want to do some crazy things every now and again. And so if you end up with that, well, oh, God help you. God help you,
Yeah.
Ontario.
We've got Scott Moe, actually. He is headed, he might actually be in Washington right now. He was headed to make the case for Saskatchewan, not leaving it up to the Liberals to do the diplomacy of, well, basically doing in the potash sector, I think is what would happen if this were up to the Liberals, because you can get your potash from Saskatchewan or you can get it from Russia and some of the other horrible places of the world, which, if you tariff inbound potash from Saskatchewan, then the cost of food goes up in middle America. The liberal elites on the coast, they'll still be having their avocado and toast and their organic whatever. But if you want to feed the people in middle America, you need affordable inputs in agriculture, and that's what Saskatchewan brings to the table. And Scott Moe, he's making the case, I think currently in Washington, if I recall, he's either on his way or there But he's talking about who's exactly responsible for the trade problems right now.
But the largest interprovincial trade barrier that we have in this nation is our inability to build a pipe and to have a highly functioning rail system and port system, so that each Canadian industry has reliable access day in, day out to our ports and to Canadian customers. And so, the fact that we've had policy decisions that have inhibited our ability to provide, in our case, our interest as Western Canadian energy to other Canadians, is a failure by a failure in leadership of the Liberal government. Now we see them changing their position, leadership candidates, and even the Minister of Energy changing their position on national infrastructure like pipeline infrastructure, Energy East infrastructure. But they've been the problem, and they've been the holdup for far too many years in the largest interprovincial trade barrier that Canada has, our ability to get energy back and forth.
So first of all, Premier, I'm not sure that answers my question about 30 days. I see your passion on the issue, but in terms of the timeline, realistic or no?
It is realistic to remove a large number of exemptions that are in the Canadian Free Trade Agreement. Again, that's much on Minister Anand, as a large number of them are the federal governments. But there's other provinces that need to be equally committed. If we're going to go down to 1 or 2 or 3 from Saskatchewan's perspective, our expectation is that provinces that have 20 or 30 have a long ways to come.
Is there a particular province that you're pointing to there, sir? I know Quebec has added restrictions because of the emphasis on the French language.
Yes, there's a number of provinces, Quebec will be among them.
We've only got a moment left. You keep talking about pipelines, so I think I'd be remiss not to ask you. There is this renewed enthusiasm for a west to east pipeline, but there are no, as far as I'm aware of, commercial proponents. You mentioned Energy East. It's clear that project is dead, that particular project. It would have to start from scratch at this point. How likely, really, looking at the commercial environment right now, is it that we would see a west to east pipeline in Canada?
It's dead because the Liberal government killed it.
Well, there's also no industrial partner to take it on right now, right at this moment, if we're talking about the future.
There was until the Liberal government killed it with the introduction of Bill C-69.
Yes.
And people should remember why we are vulnerable in this nation when it comes to being energy secure, why we have really an inability to participate in the energy dominance conversation that the U.S. Wants to participate in and wants to get to, is because of the policy decisions that we've made over the course of the last 9 years. And we need to remember that as we face quite likely a general election this year. We need to do better as Canadians in ensuring we are preserving our ability to be energy secure, food secure, and ensure that our trading partners value us as a nation and being part of that partnership.
I'm so happy he brought up energy security and food security together, because in Saskatchewan, the vast majority of our energy products, oil and gas products, travel by rail. And when we have, as you know, railroad tracks, you can only have one train on a track at the same time. And because our tracks are so overloaded with oil and gas product trying to make it to market, what it does is it displaces our ag products.
Yep.
So farmers trying to get their product to port and to their markets is made extraordinarily more complicated by oil and gas. And if we put the oil and gas in a pipeline, if we put it in a pipeline, it would free up so much more space on our rail system to be able to accommodate our ag products. And the most egregious thing about this is oil and gas is prioritized on our rail system. It's prioritized. I think they pay a premium to be able to use the rail system, while our ag products and while our food rots in the bin. Oil is, it belongs in a pipe, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah, every time I see a long tanker train, I think, man, someone should just weld those things together and just bury it in the ground. Wouldn't that be fun?
Exactly like that. And I think that if there were an economic environment in Canada that would make it palatable to investors, we'd be able to attract those investors back for Energy East.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because Scott Moe seemed to be having difficulty explaining it to the state broadcaster's well-kept talking head there, market forces.
Talking mole? You mean talking
Yeah.
mole? Did you see it? Did you? I saw it.
Oh,
I
yeah, I
can't not
did.
see it. Yeah.
You can't help but see it. But yeah, like you could. The latest polling data from Angus Reid says that now, like 2/3 of Canadians are like, yeah, we need an east-west pipeline. Okay, thank you. Where were you when Justin Trudeau was not just letting the Trans-Canada Pipeline Energy East die on the vine? He literally took a pillow and stuck it over its head with the introduction of anti-pipeline legislation, shoehorning all sorts of DEI nonsense into pipeline approvals so that it would become almost impossible to get any sort of large-scale energy project done. I have a story, I think, coming out about this today, and like the series of pipelines that died because of it, and how even now the places that were the most opposed to it, Energy East, Quebec, that now largely in favor. Even in British Columbia, where Northern Gateway could have went from beautiful downtown Bruderheim, Alberta, just up the road, to ports in the north of British Columbia, that now people are by and large in favor of that project. Here's the problem, though. When you have the Liberals and their anti-pipeline legislation, plus their inflation, plus their carbon tax, plus now a threatened carbon tax on upstream emitters, thanks to Mark Carney, what you have is a climate that does not encourage investment to Canada, despite the fact that we have the world's third largest proven oil and gas reserves. We are in a situation like Venezuela, where they have the world's largest proven energy reserves, but nobody wanting to do business there because of their socialist government and the possibility of expropriation at any point. And so it got so bad in Canada, sorry, I'm ranting, but TransCanada, which was the company that proposed Energy East, changed its name to TC Energy because of the stigma of being a Canadian energy company. And that's how bad Justin Trudeau has made it in Canada with our vast energy and mineral resources to do business here. So while CBC seems confused, like, whoa, people want an east-west pipeline, why aren't there any commercial investors? Because of Justin Trudeau, because of what happened with Kinder Morgan's Trans Mountain Pipeline, which is no longer Kinder Morgan's Trans Mountain Pipeline, but your Trans Mountain Pipeline, because it started off as a $5 billion private sector investment, but the Liberals would not enforce the law, kowtowed to environmentalists, and now it's a $35 billion taxpayer-funded boondoggle that you're on the hook for. Just let companies do business and Canadians will be wealthy. Okay, I'm done.
I love that rant. Like, please, 10 stars for that rant by Sheila Gunn Reid. No, but you really did hit the nail on the head. Justin Trudeau has created such a hostile environment for resource development and pipelines in Canada that it's just impossible. It's staggering that the CBC doesn't know this. It's staggering that they don't.
They don't know about private sector anything. They're just like, we need more money. Justin, just put it in our hands and we'll find creative ways to waste it. Thank you. Like, they don't understand the reality of trying to do business in Justin Trudeau's Canada, because for them, doing business just means asking their sugar daddy for a little bit more money while they continue to make content that nobody wants to watch.
That's right. That's exactly right. They can't be defunded soon enough. It's going to be the best day of my life. I'm calling it right now. Better than my birthday and Christmas and Valentine's all rolled up together. The day the CBC is defunded is going to be the best day of my life.
I'm going to buy Rosie Barton's wardrobe when they part it out like an old Dodge minivan, and I just want to wear it on air and just swim in her clothes.
Don't, like, when the CBC gets sold off like a farm auction, Sheila.
Oh,
we are
God.
going to be
and you know I love them.
we're gonna be there with a paddle. We're gonna that will be my first auction. I've actually never been to an auction. I feel like,
are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding. I feel like they're just a little bit too fast paced for me. They're just a little bit too much pressure. Like, I would run and hide in my van. That's what but I'll make an exception for the day the CBC gets auctioned off, because, again, like I said, it's going to be the best day of my life.
My father was fluent in Ukrainian. There are no Ukrainians in our woodpile. I don't know how we escaped that, but we are not even a little bit Ukrainian for being northeastern Alberta, where all the names in the phone book end in Y or I.
Yes.
But we're not even a little bit. My dad, fluent in Ukrainian. Why? Because nobody could talk about the deals or what wasn't a deal at the farm auctions without him knowing. And a lot of the language of business at the time was done in Ukrainian to avoid outsiders, which were the non-Ukrainian speakers, from figuring out what
Yes.
was going on. So anyways, yeah, that's just a little tidbit about Gun family history. He loved to listen to the Ukrainian Hour on 790 CFCW. He did. He did. He loved him some Ukrainian music. Anyway, let's keep going. Premier Ford, he has finally, after running his yap for the better part of 6 weeks, decided, I should go. I should go to Washington. But now everybody knows what he thinks of Washington, so might be a little bit late. He went to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in Washington and reminds the Americans that we can deliver from Ontario electricity as far south as Florida on a moment's notice. We can flick on the switch or flick off the switch.
Still
is that a
friends, Doug.
threat?
Still just making friends like
He
nobody's
can't even
business.
plead his case properly. Why?
We could just turn
I
off your
want to
lights.
further integrate our energy and electricity grids. People don't realize, as we stand right here, right now, we can deliver from Ontario electricity as far south as Florida. In just a moment's notice, we can flick on the switch or flick off the switch. I prefer flicking on all the switches, and encourage more exports of Canadian energy and electricity to the U.S. to power your economic growth.
That's really gonna win him over, Doug. Just telling him that you could shut off all the lights on the entire East Coast. That's gonna win them over. You idiot. Somebody needs to stuff a pair of underwear in Doug Ford's mouth, for God's sakes. He should not be able to talk off the cuff. Like, somebody needs to rein him in. Put a collar on him, for God's sake.
I think the worst part is those were prepared. Like that speech was prepared. Somebody thought that was a good idea. It looked like he was reading something there. I said last week on the show, how is it possible that Doug Ford, because it was kind of close to a Groundhog Day, how is it possible that he looks both like Wiarton Willie and the guy who holds up Wiarton Willie? I don't know how, but he's done it. And threatening upstate New York with a blackout, not a great idea. Do you remember maybe like 2 decades ago when they had a blackout in New York and it was like mayhem? It was like the purge.
Yes, because none of their infrastructure works. Like, none of their subways work. None of the people could use elevators. Like, it was a big hairy deal. And Doug is just like, meh, we could do that to you if we wanted. I could do that to you, no problem. Like, oh, Doug Ford. I gotta say, Sheila, David Menzies' piece last week, 10 Reasons Not to Vote for Doug Ford, absolutely incredible masterpiece. Like, I'm going to invent an award, order a trophy, and give it to David Menzies for that piece, because this is what we should be doing to politicians who aren't holding up their end of the bargain, is shaming them publicly for not holding up their end of the bargain. And so I just wanted to give David Menzies just some public love for that, because it's just awesome. Yeah, there's our guy. There's our fedora.
I love that suit he's got too. He told me he got it at Value Village. But yeah, good for him. But he put a lot of work into that video. I think it's like 30 minutes long or approaching that. And he comes by his opinions of Doug Ford honestly, because he used to have great affection for Doug Ford.
They had like a little romance. Like, they were tight, and they were working on stuff together, and they were very sort of aligned in terms of their political beliefs. And then all of a sudden, Doug makes friends with Justin Trudeau, and then David Menzies isn't good enough for Doug. You know what? That's a garbage human. That's a garbage human. Yeah. I'll be nice to you as long as you can do something for me.
Right.
But if you can't do anything for me, well, then I'm going to throw you in the trash heap. That's what Doug Ford did to our David Menzies. I think it's garbage. I think it's garbage.
What have you done for me lately?
That's Doug Ford's theme song.
Yeah, we've got another I don't think that this was scripted. Remarks from Doug Ford again. He says President Trump is probably one of the best negotiators in the world, but we need to sit down. What's the date today? It's like the 11th of February. This tariff mania stuff has been going on since Trump was elected. Why are we sitting down 11 days after we were supposed to have tariffs slapped on us? This seems like something you should have done beforehand. By the grace of God, we currently don't have those tariffs. Let's watch this.
Yeah, please, let's do.
Let's watch it first.
You know, let's all face it. There's no secret. President Trump is probably one of the best negotiators in the world. This is his area of expertise. But we need to sit down. And it's not always just the president. He has great advisors. He has very important key allies that sit in the Senate and sit in the Congress that he needs their support. So we're going to continue communicating our message about the AMCAN Fortress.
Let's face it, Doug, maybe you'd be better at negotiating with Trump had you not called a provincial election out of nowhere and had to campaign and had to try and retain your job. Maybe if you hadn't have done that, forced the people of Ontario into an election that they did not want, instead of encouraging the federal government to give them the election they do want, maybe you'd be on the ball on this, Dougie. Maybe that's just my first thought.
Listen to his change in tone. Now that he's in the United States, he's like, yeah, Trump's a great negotiator. He's one of the smartest people in the world. He's got great people around him. Except when he's standing there next to Justin Trudeau and he's like, yeah, screw Trump. He's not a good friend. He's not a good ally. He's stabbing us in the back. Like once he's in Canada in front of the Canadian media, and then he goes to the Americans and he's like, you know, he's one of the smartest people I've ever seen. It's just what a phony.
And like buttering up the advisors, right? Like not just buttering up Trump, but buttering up the people around Trump. And he's just got such great advisors. You, Doug, that's the question. Do you have good advisors? I would say by these last 3 weeks of Doug's little foot stomp and outbursts, the answer is no. I mean, stop listening to them, Doug. This isn't working in your favor. Crazy guy.
Like the Trump administration is not hard of remembering. They can remember something you said 48 hours ago. Doug, like, it's not like in the far distant past. It's like this week you said stuff.
And listen, Trump, nobody has a memory for being burned like Donald Trump. Nobody logged those insults like that guy. Remember, he spent 4 years listening to his enemies talk crap about him in public, including Chrystia Freeland, including Justin Trudeau, including the entire Liberal Party of Canada. And Doug thinks they're going to forget what he said 2 days ago? Oh, best of luck, big buddy. Best of luck.
Yep. Now we've got a breaking clip right here. Donald Trump, we could hit Canada with 100% auto tariffs.
There it is, Dougie.
There it is, Doug.
There it is, Doug. Well done, big guy. Well done. This is what you get. This is what you get when you antagonize Trump. Let's go.
You know, if you look at Canada, Canada has a very big car industry. They stole it from us. They stole it because our people were asleep at the wheel. So what happens is Canada is going to have our cars. We're going to take the car industry. If we don't make a deal with Canada, we're going to put a big tariff on cars. Could be a 50 or 100% because we don't want their cars. We want to make the cars in Detroit.
Sports has always been something.
But when I talked about Canada, they gave us tremendous security along. It started out for security and then it started getting economic. And it's really both.
You know, the Prime Minister said this weekend to a group of Canadian businessmen, he was at a private meeting, he said that your wish for Canada to be the 51st state is a, quote, real thing. Is it a real thing?
Yeah, it is. I think Canada would be much better off being a 51st state because we lose $200 billion a year with Canada. And I'm not going to let that happen. It's too much. Why would we do that? I asked Trudeau that question. I said, why would anybody want to lose $200 billion? Why would I, as president, say, I'm going to give you $200 billion a year? You're Canada. You're a different country. And I love Canada. I have so many friends in Canada, you can't count them. Wayne Gretzky, I love Wayne Gretzky. I love so many people. I love their tradition. I love their ice hockey. But why are we paying $200 billion a year, essentially in subsidy to Canada? Now, if they're a 51st state, I don't mind doing it. The Canadian citizens would have a much lower tax rate. They'd have much better medical, and they'd have military protection like nobody can have. You know, you have Russian ships all over the place. You have Chinese ships all over the place. They're sailing all over Canada. They're sailing right next to Greenland. We're not going to let that happen to Greenland. They're sailing all over, and we're going to stop that. But if you're a Canadian and you pay much lower taxes, you have much better military protection. You know, Canada is in default in NATO. I mean, they pay the lowest number of any country for NATO. And it's not fair. You know why they do that? Because they think America is going to protect them automatically. We can't do that anymore. But as a state, it all works great. As another country, I'm not going to do it. Now, what's going to happen if I take away the subsidy? Canada really ceases to become a viable nation.
I mean, the truth,
Yeah.
the shocking amount of truth that's coming out of that guy. And that's why Justin Trudeau is so uncomfortable, is because he knows that Trump is telling the truth. He knows that we're in an extraordinarily vulnerable position because of his doing. And so, I mean, to say that Doug Ford's auto industry is going to get hammered with 100% tariffs. Nobody deserves it more.
I hate to see it, and if you listen to CUPE, they're like, well, that's fine. We'll just nationalize all the companies that want to move to the United States because they want to avoid tariffs or relocate to a more favorable tax regime or whatever. They're like, no, we'll just nationalize it. And again, I go back to Venezuela. I'm like, can I show you where Venezuela is on a map? Because they nationalized the oil companies there, and now their people are eating zoo animals.
Hitler did that with Volkswagen. Didn't work out that well. Yeah, it didn't. How'd that go? Didn't work out that well. I mean, but of course CUPE would say that. CUPE is also saying that Canadians that are considering taking their families and businesses across the border to live in America while our country devolves into a communist crap hole, okay, that their property should be seized. That their property should be seized.
Yeah, get them kulaks. You show those kulaks. You know, we've seen this before.
We've seen this before many, many times in communist countries, but this is what Canada has been allowed to become, is a communist country. So the quicker Trump can help solve that for us, the better.
In one way or another. You know, it's fine. You know what? At this point, I'm indifferent to what the end result might be, as long as whatever we're suffering through comes to a quick conclusion. I'll be happy with this. Now, Danielle Smith, also just with the big fact injection here. This is what she tweets. And I did a story on this last week. Americans have and this falls squarely on Justin Trudeau's anti-oil government and the fact that he does not have a trade envoy in Washington ever making the case for this stuff. And Rachel Notley, when she became premier here in Alberta, we had an envoy in Washington from Alberta that all his job was Rob Merrifield, former Harper, I think he was a cabinet minister. He was there to make the case for Alberta. Advanced pipelines, advanced trade, advanced ag, whatever it took, promoting and selling and lobbying for Alberta and Washington. Rachel Notley gets elected. What does she do? Recall Rob. And then now this is the woman on Justin Trudeau's trade task force with Trump. First thing she did was recall Rob Merrifield. So she kiboshed any sort of idea of trade with the Americans from Alberta. But this is Danielle Smith. And she is a different woman, and she's a brighter woman. She says, strong Canada-U.S. trade ties means jobs, energy security, and economic growth on both sides of the border. Alberta alone supplies 56% of all U.S. oil imports, twice as much as Mexico, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq combined. That fuels American refineries, which employs over 25,000 workers and turns $100 billion in Alberta energy exports into $300 billion in value-added products. Meanwhile, this is amazing. Nearly 1 million Americans have jobs dependent on trade with Alberta, just us. And Canadians spend over 7 times more per person on US goods than Americans do on Canadian products. A strong partnership means a stronger economy for both nations. Let's keep trade moving. That's making the case for trade with maybe not the rest of the country, but with us. Like 1 million Americans just about are reliant on trade with Alberta for their jobs through oil and gas, which incidentally we sell at a reduced rate to the Americans because we don't have market access, because the Liberals made sure that Northern Gateway never got built. And so that's what she's in the, oh, excuse you, bless you. That's what she's been doing whenever she goes to Washington. This is what she talks about. That's not being a traitor. That's fighting for Canadian jobs, because fighting for Canadian jobs also protects American jobs. But this also makes the case for the 51st state. This also makes Trump's case on the flip side. So you got to be a bit careful. But what I do know is that Americans have no clue how much oil they get from Canada. And that, when I say Canada, I mean Alberta and Saskatchewan. They have no clue. They think the majority of their oil imports comes from Saudi Arabia. And that is a failing of Justin Trudeau. And also, by the way, big oil, that's you failing too, because you guys have all the money for marketing.
That's right. That's exactly right. No, there is a failure on both parts there. But she is such a skilled diplomat, isn't she? I mean, there is nobody that is doing a better job representing the interests of both Alberta, but the country, and also the country, Sheila. She is a de facto diplomat to the United States right now, and I would not want to think about where we would be had it not been her work over these last several months.
We would be in, well, we are still in absolute chaos, but I think it would be a lot worse.
It'd be a lot worse.
And we would be under crushing tariffs right now. We wouldn't even have the reprieve we have right now for Trudeau to screw it up and not appoint a fentanyl czar, which he should have appointed the day before the tariffs. But here's the thing. Where do you find somebody within the Liberal brain trust who isn't pro-pushing fentanyl?
You don't. I mean,
That's
this has
the
been
problem.
Strategy is to, but again, there's, as it pertains to safe supply in Canada, you must consider it, again, like you do all things that Trudeau upholds, the exact opposite of what he says is what he means. And so it's really hard when you're outright trying to kill Canadians. I mean, you know how cheap it is? You know how cheap it is? When your people are dead, they don't have to, you don't have to pay for healthcare if your people are dead. You don't have to pay for education if your people are dead. You don't, I mean,
treatment.
Or treatment. I mean, a dead citizen is the cheapest citizen. And that is what Justin Trudeau has done. And so, I mean, we are just in such a precarious position in Canada right now because of the multitude of failings of our federal government. I think that people are really just looking for a lifeline at this point.
Yeah, and here we have the NDP, or as I like to call them, the Socialist Caucus of the Liberal Party of Canada. He's Jagmeet Singh. He's proposing a 100% tariff on Teslas. That's his big solution. Oh, we've moved on to khaki-colored or tan-colored expensive sweaters. Let's see what Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney are wearing this week, because you know how they coordinate their outfits.
Yep.
I've been speaking to a lot of Canadians about how they feel about what Donald Trump's doing. Of course, there's worry, but now Canadians are pissed off. They feel insulted. You know, we were good neighbors. We worked together to build a good economy, and Donald Trump has insulted us. People feel offended at this idea of the 51st state. So Canadians on their own are already taking action. They're saying, we're going to buy Canadian, we're going to boycott American. And I want to acknowledge all the Canadians making that decision. Thank you for doing that. It's the right thing to do. We also want to punch back against those that are taking shots at our sovereignty. We know that the billionaire buddy of Donald Trump, Elon Musk, is a driving force behind the 51st state. So let's punch back against him. I should also mention he's not only the billionaire buddy of Donald Trump, he's also the billionaire buddy of Pierre Poilievre here in Canada. We want to pick a fight with this guy because we want to take him on. I'm not going to stand back while he takes shots at our country. So our move now is we want to put 100% tariff on Tesla cars. You pick a fight with Canada, we're going to fight back. We're going to make sure Donald Trump and Elon Musk feel it.
Okay, well, first of all, he's not Donald Trump's buddy. He's our Canadian buddy. Reminder,
Right, he's Canadian. He's a Canadian success story.
He is the biggest Canadian success story. He is one of the world's richest men, if not the world's most richest man. And the crazy thing is Elon Musk has Starlink. He has Neuralink. He's going to Mars. He catches rockets, okay, in salad tongs. Okay, this is what this guy is doing. And Jagmeet Singh thinks that putting 100% tariffs on the 5 or 10,000 vehicles that are coming into Canada is going to harm Elon Musk. It's not even going to phase him. And Jagmeet Singh better be real careful, okay? Because if they find out, if they hear this, like if this gets propagated direct straight to Elon's or Donald Trump's ears, what they're going to do is they're going to smack 150% tariff on our critical minerals. That's what the United States is going to do, because while our Canadian politicians are playing chess, our American politicians are playing battleship with them.
Right.
So keep antagonizing, you guys. We're getting nothing but good results. Keep antagonizing, you fools.
Yeah. By the way, I noticed, I was like, okay, he wants to slap tariffs on Teslas. Let's see if he's willing to put his money where his mouth is. Like, are you willing to stop using Elon Musk products? No. Jagmeet Singh posts his threat to tariff Elon Musk to Elon Musk's ex. So he can't, like, do you know what I mean? Like, okay, you'd want to tariff these luxury cars that almost, like you said, 10,000 coming into the country every year. But he wants to put 100% tariff on Teslas, and then he announces it on his X account, and X is owned by Musk. Like, if you want to really show Elon Musk, why don't you really show us how serious you are and disappear from X to Blue Sky with all the minor attracted people over there?
Well, that would prohibit him from having anybody read it, though. So, or
Right.
be able to afford it. And people that can afford Teslas aren't on Blue Sky, are they, Jagmeet?
No.
Are they? But what? Like, I love how he's like, we're gonna ban Teslas, and then everybody's gonna go out and buy a Canadian-made EV, and we're gonna give them $10,000 credits to buy a Canadian EV. You would have to pay me outright for the entire cost of a Canadian EV and then give me $10,000 on top of it. And then it would just sit in the garage because I'd be too embarrassed to drive.
And it wouldn't work. It's cold out.
Right, -40 today. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you guys can get your Canadian-made EVs. Like, get real, Jagmeet. Get
Sure.
real. You're not a serious man.
No. Now, further to tariff mania and the Liberals just not being able to hold their tongues. Leaked audio. Trudeau says Trump administration are prolific users of disinformation. This is from The Logic. Trudeau, of all people, Mr. Funder of the CBC, and CBC had to retract and or correct two separate stories accusing the Freedom Convoy of being some sort of Kremlin-run operation. They're the ones that said the majority of the money going to the Freedom Convoy was foreign, and CSIS said it wasn't. They're the biggest peddlers of disinformation there ever was. Even just to like 2 weeks to flatten the curve 3 years later.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, they just can't shut their mouths. Like, if they went into just complete silence for 2 weeks, it would be better than whatever they're trying to do right now dealing with Trump.
Mm-hmm. True story. Um, every time Justin Trudeau says disinformation and misinformation, I learned this on Twitter last week. There's here we go. There's a guy out of the states. His name is Mike Benz, and he's been doing a deep dive into USAID for the last 10 years. Like, nobody knows the gross breadth and reach of USAID rot as it pertains to NGOs. And somebody posted a video. Well, it was Mike Benz that posted a video about the Atlantic Council. Okay, the
Yeah.
Atlantic Council. And this is an NGO that's funded by USAID to train journalists to be able to tamp down dissent and criticism and regular questioning people by labeling them purveyors of disinformation and misinformation. The Global Affairs Canada also contributes to the Atlantic Council of America, and you wonder what services Global Affairs Canada got in return for this training that they put on. And when you hear Canadian journalists start talking about disinformation and misinformation, what you should think as a smart person is, what are they trying to convince me not to think? Like, take the exact opposite track, because when they call it disinformation and misinformation, that's because we are getting too close to the truth for their liking. So every time Justin Trudeau uses those words, you need to go in the exact opposite direction, as you do with everything Justin Trudeau says. But it was just staggering to learn that Global Affairs Canada is participating in this. It was just staggering. And I mean, it explains a lot.
Sure, we see this sort of stuff all the time, where Global Affairs Canada, Heritage Canada too, they fund the NGO, which is really just an activist group with favorable tax status, to do the dirty work of the Liberals. And they call it for foreign aid, domestic aid, equity advancement is another one. How do you think the mayor of Emo, Ontario got sued? It was through a grant to Borderlands Pride.
And we were, I just gotta bring it back. In December, we were onto this already, Sheila, before USAID got exposed.
Ages.
Right? Like, we were onto this. We were saying to rebel viewers, we were saying the federal government uses NGOs to do their dirty work. And we were talking about it in a context of the mayor of Emo, Ontario, who got sued by EGAL for not flying the pride flag. We went, this is happening all the time in Canada. This is a way for them to do their dirty work. And looky here, they're doing even more of it. And what's incredible, if you aren't on X, okay, if you're a listener and you're not on X, you should be, because Canadians have been digging into the grant databases available online and exposing an insane amount of institutional rot, and to get all of those discoveries, I mean, there's no better place in the world to find it than on X.
Well, and the Canadian taxpayer, has been funding this activism far beyond the LGBTQ stuff, which is sort of a more recent development, like from 2017 forward.
Yes.
But even before that, once Justin Trudeau got into power, he was dumping money on the activist groups, the environment, and that's how the opposition to those pipelines that got canceled, it was so well funded, and it was so loud that the Justin Trudeau Liberals just had to listen to it. Well, it was real loud because you were giving them money to be loud so that they could be part of the legitimization of the anti-pipeline movement, and it made it seem a lot louder and larger than it really was. That was Canadian money doing that.
Another part of it is the federal government gives money to the NGOs that then fund the political campaigns of the woke left. That's another part of it. Like, it is so corrupt. This whole thing is so corrupt. And Pierre Poilievre, without legal money laundering. That's what or is it legal? We'll see. But that it got on the radar of Pierre Poilievre, that he said he is going to take money away from international global affairs Canada and put it where it would be better used for Canadians. That tells me that he's really, really engaged with what people are exposing on X right now, what Canadians are exposing on X right now. So it's just phenomenal what's happening. We're seeing a groundswell of citizen journalists really, really digging into where the government has been screwing us forever and exposing it for all the world to see. And nobody deserves a bigger, brighter light shone on it than our federal government.
Since we just touched on this, we'll show this clip and then we will do a quick little rebel ad. Since we've been giving her for an hour and 4 minutes without any break whatsoever, and that's
So
fine. We could
easy.
go forever. So easy. Time is flying. But Pierre Poilievre says under his leadership, and it's funny because I watched this yesterday and I was like, dang, he looks real cold. And when your face starts to freeze when you're outside and you're trying to talk when it's this cold and your lips don't work properly. He's experiencing that. And I looked at the weather in Iqaluit yesterday. I'm like, oh God, it must be real cold. I'm like, no, actually, it was warmer there than it was here yesterday, and it continues to be that way. But he says that he is going to make massive cuts to foreign spending and redirect the funding to his Canada First plan. From his lips, his frozen little lips, to God's ears.
All of these improvements will be funded by dramatically cutting foreign aid, most of which, or a lot of which, goes to dictators, terrorists, and global bureaucracies. We've got enough problems at home. We've got our own backyard to protect. We can't be sending billions of dollars to other places. Often, much of it is wasted and stolen and swallowed up by bureaucracies that act against our interests. I will be bringing our money home with massive cuts to these wasteful and corrupt foreign aid grants. So Canadians will decide. With Trudeau, Carney Liberals, more and more billions of dollars will go to global and globalist organizations, while our people at home are starving and our military is unable to defend our territory. Or they can bring it home with common sense conservatives who will make sure our money serves our people, our sovereignty, and our interests.
I dare say he's been paying attention to what's happening at Doge in the United States.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's not
Yes.
it's not just foreign spending. I've got a story coming out either today or tomorrow. It's exclusive to us. I've got the documents to show you. You won't find it on the global affairs foreign funding list that everybody's going through, because I had to get it through. I saw it as a proactive release, just the briefing note on this. So I was like, I need all those documents. Public Service and Procurement Canada threw a party at Global Affairs main office to celebrate a gender inclusive washroom.
Send the meteor.
I'm
Send
like,
it.
what did you do? Did you just crack off the little lady wearing a dress sign on the door and just put washroom on there? But anyways, there was there were information kiosks and everything. So stay tuned. No, not a word of lie. I've got all the documents to prove it.
Sheila, I just want to tell you how much I'm enjoying your exposethewaste.com website. It's exposethewaste.com, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, everybody, if you want to see how your government is wasting your taxpayer funds, head on over to exposethewaste.com. You will simply not believe it. You will simply not believe it. How Canadians are being allowed to go homeless, how Canadians are lining up at food banks when we have billions of dollars going out the door, flying out the door. On pointless, insane federal government initiatives. I mean, it's crazy. It is just insane.
Every time you see a story about the lineups at the food bank, think of this. Think of the $52,000 they gave to Brian Adams' side hustle. Think about that. Think about the celebration they held for a washroom.
A washroom. Washroom. I want to see the booze tab for that one. I want to see the booze tab.
I found one that I think it might be today or tomorrow, so stay tuned, about they gave money to gender balanced gender perspectives on the sanitation committee in a town in Paraguay. And I was like, this ended only like one of two ways, with a dysentery outbreak or none of the local women deciding that they wanted to be on the local crapper commission. Like I was like, what, how did we get it? How did this get on global affairs radar? But it did, and we paid for it.
How do these things get approved? Like, how do they actually get approved? Because even on the surface, you read it and you go, really, is this a good use, a good, are we being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar? And of course the answer is no. But I would like to just add that it seems to me that every time a government grant is given to something for women, okay, for women, especially in foreign countries, that's just code for depopulation. Like
Yes.
that's just code for depopulation. So should we be depopulating the earth on behalf of foreign countries? Should that be the purview of our federal government and the country of Canada? I would argue not. I would argue
Yeah.
not. That goes the same thing for at home too, though. Like wherever women are involved, they're actually just trying to make women sterile and not have more babies. So
Right. Whenever I see the words reproductive health, it means the opposite of reproduction. And what it means is eugenics colonialism. I
that's
think.
exactly. Isn't that
Yeah.
icky? Like, isn't
Ugh.
that icky that we would be signing on to this? It's gross. It's absolutely disgusting. But that's our federal government for you guys.
That's
You get
exactly
what you
it.
get.
Let's hit a Rebel News ad break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about what April Hutchinson's going to be up to in a few short weeks and how people can make sure that they see her.
Okay.
Canadians know the national anthem. They stand in silence to remember those who died for this country. But not every Canadian knows their rights and freedoms. The Freedom Passport will change that. It looks and feels like a Canadian passport, but contains the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in a portable, easy-to-read format. The Freedom Passport. Order one for yourself and for all the freedom lovers that you love at freedompassport.ca.
Oh, hi, it's Ezra Levant here in Toronto with an important message because we need your help. Independent journalism in Canada is under attack. Government censors, big tech deplatformers, and the dying legacy media are all working together to maintain exclusive control on the information you receive. They don't want you to hear other voices like ours, and they really don't want you to be informed and to think for yourself. That's why the work we do here at Rebel News is so important. Our on-the-ground reporting, independent news shows, and special content you won't find anywhere else. It's all designed to give you trustworthy information and alternative viewpoints so you can decide for yourself. We don't get government money, and we are not owned by some big global conglomerate. We're funded by people just like you, so please support independent journalism and help us continue our work by subscribing and becoming a Rebel News Plus member today, right here on the page. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. Members get instant access to all of our shows, invitations to exclusive events, and access to our premium content like live event footage and documentaries you won't see anywhere else. Only Rebel News Plus members can join the conversation by participating in the comments section of our new website. That way you can have your say too. More than anything, though, you'll be able to take pride in supporting real, honest journalism, and you'll help our talented team continue to do the work to push back on the establishment. We really can use your help. We need it, in fact. So thank you, and enjoy Rebel News Plus.
You know, I forgot I once leapt into David Menzies' arms in front of a crowd of hundreds of people at a Rebel News Live event. I have a lot of confidence in his double artificial hips. I just realized how dangerous that was now looking back and seeing that footage. Let's talk about what April Hutchinson is up to. February 22nd, 2025. It's not just what April Hutchinson is up to, it's what Lise and I are up to, because I cordially invited Lise to be my +1, and she RSVP'd live on air last time we hosted the show together. It's Fire and Ice with April Hutchinson, former Team Canada powerlifter and Fairness for Women in Sports advocate. She was handed down a 1-year suspension. Initially, it was a 2-year suspension for speaking out against a trans identified, dancing around the phrase here because we're trying to stay on YouTube.
Trans identified biological male
powerlifter who was competing against biological women like April Hutchinson, and this person was quite aggressive and vile in his criticism of the female athletes he was competing against. So she talks about her story, how powerlifting helped her overcome her addiction, and her addiction stemmed from childhood trauma. And she's there with Theo Fleury and our friend, our alumnus, Adam Sos. That's at one of the best places on the face of the earth, Church in the Vine in Edmonton. For those of you who don't know Church in the Vine, Pastors Tracy and Rodney, they opened their church for the abandoned and the disaffected during the COVID lockdowns, and they were slapped with an $80,000 administrative fine for that. But through your help and the help of our friends at the Democracy Fund, they were able to overturn that fine, get the money back, and they continue ministering to the faithful to this day. And they are always so generous with their space to us here at Rebel News. And they're a space where you will hear ideas the government doesn't want you to. And so I'm going to see April. And Lise is coming with me to see April, and we hope you join us too. And that's at canadiansfortruth.ca.
And really, April Hutchinson is such an inspiring woman. She is, her story is just incredible. She is principled and virtuous. And if you want to be inspired to be brave, because we all know the courage is contagious, make sure you come with us on February 22nd to Church in the Vine to meet April Hutchinson for yourself, because she is just an incredible powerhouse of a woman. Yeah, she's just wonderful. Yeah, we got a lot of room for April Hutchinson in our life.
You better believe it. Let's go into Liberal leadership candidates and their affection for ugly but expensive shoes. And this is this is not just a Mark Carney thing. You know, Lise and I don't consider myself to be a fashion plate. I have described my personal tastes in clothes as Subaru driving chicken farmer. If you know what I mean by Subaru driving. I love a good practical shoe, oversized sweatshirt, plaid. I wear the same jeans, just in different washes over and over again. I found what works for me. I'm sticking with it. I got a uniform, but I do know outlandish when I see it. And nothing allows you to wear and waste your money on stupid things like being wealthy.
Right.
Mark Carney. Let's show this tweet. Okay. Report. Liberal leadership frontrunner Mark Carney, and that's a serious photo of himself that he posted, by the way, not looking like an absolute goblin. Caught wearing, I've never even heard of these before, Zegna sneakers in a recent photo, and these sneakers are worth over $2,000. Let's show them. Here's what I have to say about those. Those look like something they would sell to the Hutterite gals down at the UFA, and for $40. And they'd get a lot of wear out of them. They got ankle support. You know what? You're standing on the concrete, sorting the vegetables all day, plucking chickens. They're great, but they're $2,000.
Yeah, because Mark Carney deals in a level of elite humanity where super high fashion means something. So whereas I get all excited about seeing a new pair of Crocs, okay?
Oh,
you know
my
how
Lord.
when I see Crocs come out with fuzzy parts on the outside, I'm like, Sheila, this is what I'm wearing to Pinoca next year. You're like, and she's like, yeah, damn right you are. This is a level of elitist in a high fashion that speaks to other people in those elite circles. Because you and I, if we were to see these shoes without the price tag attached, we would think to ourselves, well, yeah, that looks exactly what the Hutterite girls would wear from the UFA. That looks exactly. But to other elite people, okay, that signals that Mark Carney is one of them. Same goes for Hermes bags. Same goes for the red soled Louboutin heels. Same goes for the Tiffany lock bracelets.
Yeah.
This signals to other rich people that you're one of them. And so every time Mark Carney tries to tell you that he's just a down home boy from northern Alberta, don't listen to him. He's signaling to other rich people that he belongs.
Right. He's so rich that he can dress kind of ugly.
Just that.
But Freeland did this. She has those clown shoes that are like
the
a
red
worse.
ones.
And I think they're red, but they're also they're like a really ugly but ultra expensive designer version. Look at those. She has them in a couple different colors. She's really leaned into these, and they are like an ugly version of a $50 Converse that would have done just fine. If she was wearing a $50 version of Converse, I'd be like, okay, I'll believe that maybe she's looking at her Disney Plus bill and thinking, But a woman with $900 US ultra ugly shoes that she wears with dresses sometimes, and she really has to stop this. She's not considering canceling her Disney Plus. Look at.
Oh my word. Like, it's made even worse by the fact that they look like Kleenex boxes on the ends of her legs. Like, that's what that looks like to me, is like two chunky square Kleenex boxes that she slipped her feet in because she forgot her shoes at home. There's no forgiving that.
There's strong Howard Hughes vibes there between the Kleenex boxes on her feet and the mask, the hypochondriac mask. If her nails were like 4 feet long, she would look like Howard Hughes when he was going through his worst hypochondria. Anyway, what a joke. These people can't even dress themselves, and they're the ones telling us, don't worry, just cancel your Disney Plus to make life more affordable. No, cancel your ugly ass shoes, and then we'll talk.
Yep. Elites are gonna elite, you guys. That's just what it comes down to.
Yep. Arif Virani, the Justice Minister behind Bill C-63, he has decided he will not be seeking re-election. That's interesting because I just got a whole bunch of documents back on his appearance with Faye Johnstone and the Governor General. You know, the thing that they just told us. I just got him back. And they told us he just like sashayed in there. He was like, oh, I wonder what's happening at the Governor General's residence. I'll just walk in and say, hey. Oh, wow, there's a big gala here. A symposium on my keynote piece of legislation. Why don't I just take to the mic and talk? This is all just a big accident. I'm here it's kismet. It's the hand of God. No, it was planned for months in advance that he was going to be there, and he's a big fat liar, like everybody else involved. I'm going through the documents now, but yeah, at first they said the documents didn't exist, and then they sent me a whole bunch. So anyway, he's not running again.
I remember that well. Well, Canada should be absolutely delighted that Arif Virani is not running for his seat anymore, because really, in terms of destruction of Canadian culture. Now, mind you, this was a man who came to Canada as a Ugandan refugee. Remember, what was his name? Idi Amin in Uganda. He kicked out all of the Muslims in the 1970s. The Aga Khan appealed to Trudeau Sr. to take in all of these people that had been kicked out of Uganda. This is how Arif Virani arrived in Canada in the 1970s. So here's a guy who has installed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Liberal donors as justices in our court system over the last couple of years. This is a guy that proposed the most Orwellian, crazy piece of censorship legislation that would have made Canadians, it would have made Canadians stop talking to each other forever, under the threat of life in prison, okay, life in prison for things you think, don't even say, but the things you think. We should be celebrating in the streets that Arif Virani is bowing out of government, because nobody deserves to bow harder. But I can't wait to see a report, Sheila, because I remember when he was trying to muscle up support for his online harms bill, and the meeting at the Governor General's house with gender rights activists prioritizing their voices over actual women was just such an affront. It was just such a crazy affront. And I can't wait to see what you uncover in those Freedom of Information documents.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's just a liar. And then he comes to Canada, enjoys our freedoms, as we all should, as I hope every immigrant to this country does, but then do not find a position of power and then proceed to take them away from us, which is what he was doing. He took a piece of legislation, which he said was to prevent online harms directed at children, and then made it what the most Orwellian, censorious piece of legislation outside of, I think, North Korea and probably China, where you could be convicted of pre-crimes, held under house arrest for pre-crimes, things you haven't even done yet. And if you caused somebody else, or had the potential to cause somebody else to dislike another person, which is literally my entire job here at Rebel News, you could go to jail. And then also the fines for hurt feelings, and a fund to advance people to make complaints against other people for hurt feelings. And guess who would report somebody else for hurt feelings and then seek compensation for hurt feelings? The liberal types. Like, this is not, this was just like a money laundering scheme for liberal activists.
Yes, while kneecapping the ability for normal Canadians to have a say in how their lives go and what happens to us. I mean, it's just crazy. We should be dancing in the street over this man. I mean, resigning.
Yeah, and that is
welcome.
And that was this like welcome side effect of prorogation, is that it stopped that anti-hate legislation in its tracks. Anti-hate. Yeah, that was the like the side effect of that.
That's so true.
We've got a video of Trump warning Hamas, and then we can cut Lisa's mic so that she can deal with her incoming phone call. Trump warning Hamas, as far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I'll say cancel it. All bets are off and all hell will break loose. So this is the deal, to have the hostages released. Let's watch it. And then by then the message will be in for Lisa and we can turn her back on.
Well, I would say this, and I'm going to let that be because that's Israel's decision. But as far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off, and let hell break out. I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday. And if they're not returned, all of them, not in drips and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2. Saturday at 12 o'clock. And after that, I would say all hell is going to break out.
Good. Good.
Like,
go ahead.
Like, thank goodness. I have a friend that works in the international aid sector in conflict zones. When wars break out and 500,000 people or 1 million people are walking 800 kilometers, she bombs in there to help set up maternity hospitals and to make sure that there's clean water. And they do training.
Sounds like real aid work.
It is real aid work. That is actually real aid work, and really valuable aid work that has to continue. But what she says, so they do specific training about being taken hostage, because this is a very real possibility when you're working in these high conflict zones in the world. And the piece of advice that she got was, if ever you're taken hostage, you want to sit right next to the Americans, right next to them. Because their country will go in and rescue them. Whereas Canadians, if you're an aid worker and you're in Canada and the hostage takers start negotiating, Canada will not negotiate. Not only will Canada not negotiate, but they will freeze the bank accounts of your friends and family so that they can't negotiate on your behalf either. But isn't that interesting that Trump is like, all of them? All of them by Saturday noon. He is not playing. This is and this is how you have to treat these people that would hold hostages. This is how you have to treat them, with force.
Right.
This is what we got in America. It's incredible.
Well, and did you notice he sort of just made up the Saturday at 12 number on the spot? He was like, yeah, you know what? How about Saturday at 12? That's when I will have officially had enough. No more of the suffering of these people. They are no longer leverage in your terroristic war on the only reasonable democracy in the Middle East. And Trump has a proposal for Gaza. Relocate the Gazans to the rest of the region and turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East. And I think it's interesting that some of the other countries in the region are like, hey, no thanks, we don't want them. That should tell you everything you need to know. Also, most of the Gazans have Jordanian last names, so that should tell you where they're ethnically compatible. However, Jordan likes its sort of somewhat benevolent dictatorship, and they don't like the troubles that would come with people who are trained to see Israel as little Satan and America as big Satan, and have been brainwashed by UNRWA schools, UN schools, in Gaza to hate freedom, liberty, free speech, women's rights, all those things.
Jordan got rid of its rabble rousers and isn't in any big hurry.
They're like, no,
to welcome
we sent
them
them to
back.
Gaza.
They're like, no, it's actually quite peaceful here, and we're doing really good without them. Thanks so much. But is that surprising? Is that surprising that they would not want them back? Well, but then again, this is something that Trump could do too, is start making demands of countries to take back their own citizens. To bring an end to this
because
conflict.
They were,
of course,
they were at one point. Many of them were Jordanian or Egyptian. They just have been generational refugees, as if there were such a thing. Like, your first generation is refugee, and then after that you're just a resident of that place. But not in Gaza, not in the Palestinian controlled territories. The UN claims that there are such things as generational refugees, and the refugee camps, which I have laid my eyes upon, are just neighborhoods. I'm like, I've seen a refugee camp in northern Iraq. That's just a Palestinian neighborhood, but the UN dubs them refugee camps, so that they can perpetuate the existence of UNRWA that Justin Trudeau funds. And
get ready for what the left-wing corrupt media is going to say about this latest thing that Trump said, because how they're going to play it is, Trump tees off on poor Palestinian refugees. Trump puts a fine point. You know what I mean? They're going to try and eviscerate him for this latest announcement. Trump threatens Palestine if all of the hostages aren't released by Saturday. Impending war. This is how they're going to position it. Don't fall for it. Don't believe it. What he's doing is setting a firm set of expectations that they have the option, to participate in. If you don't participate, he's already told you what he's going to do. So you're going to pay the price. Like, either play nice or you're going to pay the price. That's Trump's way. And don't listen to the left-wing media when they try and spin it the other way.
Well, and I'm trying to make sense of all of this, which I don't think that I can, because if you relocate the Gazans, which 3/4 of them, up to 80% of them, sympathize with what happened on October 7th, and that number increased post October 7th. So after seeing the atrocities filmed on body cams, the burning alive, the rapes, all those things, they decided, you know what, we like their style. So their support for that went up post October 7th. And so relocating them to other Muslim countries where they would be culturally compatible within the region, or Indonesia, where they already have, it's a majority Muslim country, without a problem with terrorism. You could relocate them to there, but that's ethnic cleansing. But if you pack them up and move them to Canada en masse, that's just being good citizens of the world.
That's
okay,
humanitarian. That's
right.
that's humanitarian is what that is.
And so, and also they expect the West, but I mean, let's not kid ourselves. The weight will be carried by the Americans. They expect the West to rebuild Gaza nicer than it was before, so that it continues to be a nice place for terrorism to be percolated and barfed out into the rest of the world. That's what they expect. Or so they expect them to rebuild Gaza without strings attached, without the ability to prevent it from being that which it is currently now one more
Right.
time.
Right.
Huh?
Mm.
That doesn't make any sense, but none of
It
this
doesn't.
does.
But at least we have an adult in the room now with Donald Trump. At least we
Yeah.
have an adult in the room instead of a bunch of bloviating, hand-wringing, terrorist-enabling lunatics at the helm. At least we have an adult in the room with him.
Yes. And it sounds like Hamas is like, no, we're not releasing them. Okay, let's see how this goes.
Yep.
Let's see how it goes. By the way, the
Yep.
only people facing starvation, it would appear, in Gaza are the Israeli hostages. Did you see that one that was released?
Oh,
He looked like he walked out of Auschwitz.
That is exactly what I thought, Sheila. That is exactly what I thought. This is a person that's been deprived of all comforts, all sustenance, all nourishment.
Held underground.
Held underground, deprived of his family. Their families were killed, and then they come out of these hostage situations only to learn that their families have been obliterated. I mean, there's just it's horror upon horror.
Yeah,
it's horror upon it's torture. It's torture.
It is. I mean, which is exactly why they held them hostage. We've got a tweet from Leviathan on X. If you don't follow this person, it's Sheila Gunn Reid recommended follow just for the information dump you get. The tweet: Canada has officially entered its first phase of establishing a Sharia country by allowing political candidates who align themselves with terrorist groups. Meet Dr. Bahira Abdusalam, an independent MPP candidate for the Don Valley West region of Toronto, originally from Egypt. She meets with her constituents every Sunday by joining them at the Jewish oh Lord Almighty, at the Jewish neighborhood of Bathurst and Shepherd in Toronto. This is where they arrested Ezra, to partake in the harassment and intimidation campaign that has been witnessed for the past 4 months in that area. She will even join them protesting at synagogues, wherever those happen as well. David Menzies can't come back to work soon enough. Her social media accounts, she accounts her love for the terrorist group Hamas and its fallen leaders, like Sinwar. Anyways, she's running as an independent MPP. I'm surprised she's not running for the Liberals in Ontario, because they don't really have a problem with this sort of stuff. They sort of let it go on week after week. So anyway.
Well, she'll be perfect for them then. She'll
Yeah.
be perfect for them then. But yeah, this is a woman who thinks nothing of showing up and screaming in the face of Anthony Fury. I saw a video of her just absolutely in.
There she is with David Menzies.
They've met. Oh, here we go.
Looks that way. I guess we
Okay.
talked to her at one point. Maybe we should talk to her again out there on the campaign trail.
Now that we know that she's running as an independent. Yeah. But this is a person that just shows up in public and starts screaming, like literally just screaming. Truly kind of unhinged. Kind of unhinged. But I don't put it past Ontario to make bad decisions. No. So warning, Ontario, warning, this person is going to come campaigning for your vote, and you like getting screamed at and, supporting terrorists. This is your girl.
And you know what? From what I understand about Ontario, there's a very strong contingent of people who are pro that. You see them every single week on the streets of Toronto. And if you can muster enough of them in your prospective riding, well, heck, you might be the Hamas candidate, Hamas MPP in the Ontario legislature.
HMPP.
Yeah, gross.
Yeah.
Okay, look at that. We are actually over time. We've got one little chat from Abu Ben, if that's even your real name. Says $10 and says the wife got her eyes. See, this is when you had to finish up the show like a week ago because Elon let me down. And Starlink let me down. Starlink failed me that day. Says the wife got her I Stand with Danielle Smith t-shirt. Thank you very much for showing it to us, Lise.
Oh, I'm so happy she got one, Abu Ben. That is really legitimately one of my favorite hoodies. It's I Stand with Danielle Smith. You can get yours at aprilhutchinson.com.
Yeah.
Yep, there it is.
Very nice.
There it is. Yep.
So,
and then you too can walk around with Canada's best premier at Costco and at Co-op and at PV Mart while they still exist. You too can. I get compliments like you can't if you want to get complimented in public, wear this out because I do, and I get compliments all day long. It's the best.
In Saskatchewan.
In Saskatchewan. That's right.
All right. I think that's the show. Lise, you're the co-host again with me tomorrow. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Tuesday,
We're
Wednesdays.
Do this all over again. Yeah.
Yep. Can't wait. Thanks so much, everybody who works behind the scenes to put the show together. There is a fair bit of pre-planning for this show before we go on air, thanks to my beloved co-host, Lise Merle, taking time out of her busy day, being a mom of 6 to co-host with me. I appreciate you so much. Thanks to everybody who pitches in a little bit to keep the lights on here at Rebel News. See you back again, same time, same place tomorrow, same people even. And as my friend David Menzies always says, stay safe and stay sane.